Well, guys, the trilogy fight has been announced. It's on July 10th, UFC 264. I'm talking about the notorious Conor McGregor versus the Diamond Dustin Poirier. Nick and I are talking about that exciting matchup and what might happen right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, the trilogy has a date. We've got July 10th, UFC 264. McGregor, Poirier, the trilogy fight is upon us.
Yeah. And everybody kind of saw this one coming, and I feel like everybody's happy to see an immediate rematch for Conor McGregor, especially Dustin Poirier. It's not for the belt. I'm sure both of these guys are a little bummed out about that. But you have to be happy for Dustin Poirier. He's getting the money fight in the entire industry. And Conor McGregor, you have to be happy for him as well because he's getting a shot back at a fight that he just lost. So I feel like this is the right... There was a lot of questions answered at 155 over the past few weeks, and this is definitely one of the big ones.
Yeah, well, I think we all kind of knew, and at least it seemed fair to me, that Charles Oliveira would be 50% of the next title fight.
Yeah.
And so Dustin Poirier was sort of in the driver's seat in the sense that he was offered that fight. And he said, no, I want to go after the trilogy fight with McGregor, and then we'll talk about title after that.
Right.
So, obviously Michael Chandler is going to be here in Houston fighting on May 15th. So I think Poirier made the right decision. I think the trilogy fight is the right fight to make. And obviously, if he can get past Conor a second time in a row, he'll probably be thrust ahead into the next title fight. Now, speaking of the fact that it's not a title fight, I don't think that that's to say that there's not a lot on the line for both guys here.
Yeah.
I believe there's a tremendous amount on the line for Conor McGregor because he's still saying, he's still the champ, and he's the guy who's the biggest draw in the industry. He is the organization. All of those sorts of things are still coming out of Conor McGregor's mouth. However, if he drops a second fight in a row to Dustin Poirier, the reality of him fighting for and achieving another undisputed title, especially at 155 in the UFC, start to look pretty slim. So I think this is almost a must-win for Conor if his career is going to include and be capped off by him getting his belt back at 55.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because if he does lose this one to Dustin, and then Dustin presumably goes into a title fight with the winner of Oliveira versus Chandler, and then is able to win that. We're just talking way down the road. Then even if Conor does string together a couple more wins, it's hard to make a fourth matchup against Poirier. So it's weird. Like he'd almost be kind of stuck in no man's land at 155. I sense a couple more fights at 155 in Conor's career and a couple more fights at 170 in his career. So I think he's always planning. He's kind of a chess player when it comes to picking and choosing his fights, and he's finds the best options every single time. And if that means bumping up to 170, then he'll do that. If it means dropping down for a number one contenders match or a title fight at 155, he'll do that. It's very interesting. I do think that this fight is going to be completely different than both the first and the second one, which is weird because one of them just happened.
Right.
Everybody assumed that the second matchup that they just had was going to be totally different than the one they had 6 years ago because both fighters were completely different. But I actually do think that both fighters are going to come in with totally different game plans than they came into at the beginning of this year. Conor, he came in with a kind of a serious pressure striking game plan, and Poirier, kind of abandoned his game plan because it was sort of similar, and then went right into some takedowns and was able to actually land one that wasn't really technically sound and didn't look like the prettiest takedown in the world, but he was able to work for him, and it got Conor tired. So they may be looking at that as, hey, maybe we should go in and take him down and tire him out and just take the first round from him. And I'm interested to see this fight. I do think, even though we've seen it twice before, the third one's going to be a little different and very entertaining.
Yeah, it'll be different for sure. The takedown wasn't, like you said, it wasn't the most technically beautiful takedown of all time. It was just unexpected and well-timed.
Right.
And so it was, I don't think Conor was expecting for Dustin to try to pull that trip and get that takedown early in the fight. And obviously, when you talk about what Conor might do to rectify his mistakes in the first fight, because in my opinion, from what I saw, was a guy who was winning the first round, who was doing damage, and who was hurting Poirier. And then what I saw in Poirier was a guy who made incredible championship-level adjustments on the fly, implementing the calf kick, really tearing that front leg up, noticing the all of the weight distribution on Conor being in that front leg and that wide stance. It's extremely hard to check a kick or get out of a way of a low kick when you have that much weight in the front leg. So obviously Conor's going to address the weight distribution issue in the kick. I'm going to be interested to see if he goes back to that sort of karate light on his feet stance that he demonstrated early in his career when he was taking everybody's head at 145. I think he probably should, because I think Conor's one of the best in the game at being really light on his feet until he needs to land a power shot. And then he plants really well. He rotates his hips and lands the power shot. I think that's what he needs to do in order to have success here, is kind of move back and forth, in and out, confuse Poirier. He looked like a boxer who's very skilled at MMA as well when he fought Poirier the second time. He was kind of walking forward, moving his head, heavy in the front leg, throwing a lot of jabs, throwing 1-2s and straight punches. And obviously it was effective. Poirier even saying as much himself, saying that he was actually buzzed by one of those shots in the early rounds, and had another one landed, he would have been really in some serious trouble. So Conor did some things right in the first fight, and I'm interested to see what obviously we know he's going to address the weight distribution, but what else he might bring to this game. And maybe do we see some more kicks out of Conor? And then on the flip side of that, what do we see Dustin do in anticipation? Because if we know that those things are probably going to be adjusted, Mike Brown and the ATT team, the Poirier corner, certainly knows that those things are going to be adjusted. So what do you think Dustin might do as far as adjustments in his game plan?
The options are limitless. He could be cooking up all kinds of different ways to approach this third fight. And it's very interesting when you look at how Conor came in, because even though he looked really good and he was fighting one of the best fighters in the world, compared to how Conor generally looks in the striking realm, it was a little bit sloppy. He did kind of overreach on some of his punches, and even, I guess, some of his kicks left him off balance a little bit. I'd like to see him go back to more of a karate style, more of a sideways stance, in and out, using your feet, side to side, shuffling, those types of maneuvers. Because I think that he was able to tag Dustin with sloppier striking than he usually has. So if he can tighten it back up and kind of get back to the Eddie Alvarez type of movement, and not Eddie Alvarez, but the Conor
Eddie
McGregor
Alvarez fight movement.
the Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez type of movement, where he's slipping punches by a fingernail's length and able to counter back really well and stay balanced and stay composed. Those are the types of things that I'd like to see him do, and I think he would probably win the fight if he was able to come in like that. And he has to think that that's the way to come in and get a victory over Dustin, because Dustin was able to shut him down. And even though the first round looked, aside from the takedown, of course, looked like it was Conor McGregor's, Dustin was clearly doing some things that were also landing. It just wasn't as visual on the face of Conor McGregor until the second round. You know, he knocked Dustin's head back a few times, and Dustin started wobbling a little bit in the first round. So I feel like if he's able to tighten up that striking, tighten up his footwork a little bit, and instead of try to knock Dustin's head off with one single punch, go throw a bunch of good, crisp shots at him, he'll be able to take Dustin out. And I don't see this fight going the distance. Obviously, history tells us
these guys don't go to decision.
Yeah, these two never go to decision. So the third fight's not going to be any different for me. I do see a finish happening. And even though he lost the last one, I kind of am leaning towards Conor McGregor making the right adjustments and getting the job done.
Well, early betting odds favor Conor, I think,
Really?
but it's very close. It's almost a pick'em fight. Conor's just a slight favorite. But, you know, the thing is that Conor is one of the things that makes him such an effective, powerful striker is exactly what you said, his ability to slip punches with seemingly millimeters of distance. You know, the punch just whizzes by and he's right in position for the counter. The fight against Eddie Alvarez, I think, was probably his best fight to date that we've seen. It was a beautiful display of striking mastery, slipping, countering, baiting, all of that. And what you said, Dustin didn't do a lot of visual damage, but when he did chew up that calf, that's effectively, for those who don't know, just getting ripped in the calf that many times. That's like taking a 20-pound kettlebell and strapping it to your front leg and saying, move around with this on. It totally immobilizes you. And when you immobilize Conor, you take away a lot of his game. If you look at even the Jose Aldo knockout, it's in, out, bait him to come in, jump back, land, or jump back, plant, strike. Those types of mechanics are what Conor has found to really be his bread and butter. And when you take his mobility away and his lateral movement and all of that, then he's just kind of ripe for the taking, standing in front of you, eating shots.
Yeah.
And so I think that I think Conor absolutely has to get back to that light on his feet stance, plant when he needs to plant to throw those hard shots and land that big left hand. And I think Dustin needs to try to bait Conor with some of the mechanics that he used in the first fight to be successful. You know, maybe fake the leg kick and then come high with an overhand or something like that. Try to keep Conor guessing to see how he reacts to the new wrinkles. It's a very interesting fight. I do believe that the Conor McGregor group, Kavanaugh and his coaching staff, is going to be able to rectify and solve the Dustin Poirier puzzle. And I see Conor McGregor getting the better of the trilogy 2-1 against Dustin. And I do think it's going to be by TKO because Dustin's so difficult to take out. I say maybe third round TKO by Conor. And it's going to be because he implements that movement and that beautiful timing that we've come to know from the Notorious one.
Yeah. And Dustin, you can't count him out because I feel like this fight really could go either way. And the second fight that we saw most recently there were moments where everybody's like, oh, it looks like Conor's going to get the finish. And then 30 seconds later, it's like, oh, no, Dustin's going to, put his thing together and get the finish. And so it was a really great back and forth. It's a great matchup. These two guys stylistically are going to give the fans exactly what they want to see. Not that either of them really need the $50,000 bonus, but I anticipate it being fight of the night for however long it lasts because these guys are just very fun fighters that we really enjoy watching compete against each other. And although the beef is kind of squashed between the two of them, I think that there's going to be a little bit of a turn up as far as intensity towards each other going into this next one. It kind of felt like it was the second fight was in vacation mode, and it might have been due to being in Abu Dhabi. It might have been the fact that Conor showed up on a yacht. It might have been the fact that they were, trading whiskey bottles and hot sauce and all that stuff. But this time, it really does feel like business. That one kind of felt a little bit like a vacation fight. Yeah, this feels like there's a lot on the line, which there is. I believe the winner of this goes directly into the title fight. So I think we're going to see a lot more intensity out of both fighters, but particularly Conor McGregor. I think we're going to see a little bit of – we're going to get a respectful Conor, but we're going to get the Conor of old, the one who does play mental head games and brings that aspect of the game back into the world of MMA, which I love. You can always sign me up for a fight where Conor is trying to get every edge possible, including in the mental warfare side. Yeah, well, the mental edge is what gave Conor all that success early in his career. Nobody had done that, or very few people had done that to date. When Conor came in and started predicting finishes certain ways and coming in with intensities, just the piercing eyes and the stare downs in the weigh-ins and things like that. As you said, I don't think there's going to be any trading of hot sauce at the weigh-in. The only hot sauce that's going to be traded are the punches that are going to be traded inside that octagon when it closes. It did almost feel like that him and Dustin were going to fight and then go back to Conor's yacht and have a cigar on the back deck and watch the sunset together. So that's not going to happen this time. It'll be somewhere in between the really dark Khabib press conference and the friendly Conor that we saw. I think he'll find his groove somewhere there in the middle. Yeah, I'm excited to see it, and I feel like it's far away, but it's going to come up in no time. And we've got a ton of great fights in between then, but obviously we're going to be talking a lot about this trilogy match until the show comes. I can't wait. Guys, thanks so much for watching our video. Let us know in the comments below, does Dustin the Diamond seal off the trilogy winning 2 in a row,
Or does Conor McGregor get his loss back and avenge it and move right into a title shot with the winner of Chandler Oliveira? We love hearing with you guys. We love debating in the comments. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. And check us out on audio where you listen to those podcasts. Have a great day.
Peace.